Welcome to the Reimagine Mobility podcast series. I'm here with Jeff Varick. Jeff, thanks for joining me. An expert in the business of mobility, upfitting and upgrades in all sorts of different technologies. So Jeff, before we really get into it, what we together can reimagine mobility look like in the future, tell us a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit about the company you're leading right now and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thank you very much, Stephan. Good to be here. Yeah, so my background is automotive. Spent 11 years at General Motors, last 4 of which were in your home country of Switzerland, working for General Motors International. And it was there I got bitten by the aftermarket bug. I really started to feel like I wanted to take a turn in my career towards kind of an entrepreneurial side of the auto industry. This was, 15 years ago. It wasn't as many opportunities as there were today, but I found the aftermarket to be fascinating and pursued that. I had some great mentors along the way, and it led to where I am today with Brandmotion. And Brandmotion was actually started as a spin-off of Tier 1 called Johnson Controls Automotive, as you are undoubtedly familiar. So the way I got into this and formed Brandmotion is we spun off the aftermarket group of JCI, and our job was to find applications for OEM technology in the aftermarket. But today, kind of fast forward to 2023, we help commercial fleet and RV drivers to improve their situational awareness around their vehicles so they can avoid collisions. That's the main thing we do.
Excellent. So let's jump right into it, Jeff, with your background again, GM, and then as you call it, got bitten by the aftermarket and the abilities that you can do to help maybe a much larger group of consumers reimagine mobility now instead of having to wait for the next vehicle purchase, right? So share a little bit where you feel maybe the aftermarket business, let's say, that you're in, has maybe at times been kind of looked at maybe a little weird or a little bit as a sort of a outside business that's trying to come in mainstream. Share a little bit what people may not realize and how impactful the aftermarket is, specifically as you just mentioned, for the safety and convenience, but generally speaking, improvement of people's lives when they drive these vehicles.
Yeah, and then you put your finger on it, right? That's exactly what I saw was, when I looked at the aftermarket, I saw products and technologies that weren't always the same quality level as OEM. And I just kind of asked myself, like, why can't there be, this kind of OEM grade personalization that's done after the vehicle's built, right? And that issue just stuck with me. And I had a mentor, a very fortunate mentor in Clay Christensen. He was the author of The Innovator's Dilemma, and he taught me a lot about modularity and how, as products mature, their infrastructures tend to become more modular so that you can handle greater levels of consumer personalization. And I thought, you know what, that's exactly what's going to happen in the auto industry. We're not talking about rust anymore, and we're not talking about vehicles breaking down by the side of the road. We're talking about features that really make a difference for consumers. So I said, how can I apply that? So I didn't set out to do safety. We started with a kind of partnership with Johnson Controls around overhead rails in vehicles that you could snap content to, and I thought that's a perfect platform for personalization. You may remember the F-150 had these rails overhead. But, quickly the safety thing came along because there was so much more demand in the late 2000s for backup cameras than the car companies were supplying. And, we had a contract with General Motors to kit a mirror and a camera and the harnessing for the Silverado. and to do it to direct to the dealer. And that led to an entire business around radar blind spots and sensor integration to vehicles that really showed us that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to add safety technology to vehicles. And of course, 15 years later, we've been involved in just about every safety technology, and it can be added. The thing that fascinates me about the aftermarket, most people don't know, you can do that kind of deep contenting and you can integrate well, right? We're integrating to CAN data systems. We're making it completely seamless because we have, fantastic technicians. So, tremendous amount of opportunity in the aftermarket, especially given the fact that we're just going in the wrong direction as a country. The 36,000 deaths on the roads at the end of 2019, and last year, 43,000. We're just going completely the wrong direction because of distraction, alcohol, and speeding. So you try to solve that with new vehicles that have the latest technology, it's going to take you a long time. But if you try to solve it and address the 280 million vehicles that are already on the road, you might get somewhere. And that's kind of our mission. Is like, we're really inspired by the fact that, a company such as ours and others can take an approach to aftermarket approach to safety. In fact, there was a study done in 2015 by, I forget who did it, but it was one of the leading consulting groups. And they said that if every vehicle on the road had access to the same technology coming out of the OEM factories, we'd save 10,000 lives a year as a country. And I remember that hitting me. I remember where I was when I heard that, read that, hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, that's the aftermarket opportunity.
It's interesting. I mean, I haven't been much in the aftermarket space or helping companies with technologies in that space for now probably 10 plus years. So maybe my recollection is now way out of date, but I still want to ask you, Jeff, when I was heavily involved with aftermarket, we're talking lift gates for handicaps, we're talking backup cameras, hands-free systems, some other things, right, on an aftermarket basis. It seemed very, very difficult to really seamlessly integrate those technologies, not for all vehicles, but for the majority of vehicles, because there was a little bit this thing that the OEMs really wanted to sell their own stuff and didn't really want you as a true aftermarket supplier come in and take their market away. Has this changed? I mean, what you're talking about is absolutely right. If we wait for every vehicle to come out with level 2 or level 3 technology, ADAS technology, we're going to wait for 10 plus years, right, until we truly have a large deployment on the road. With aftermarket, cheaper solutions, maybe even better solutions in some cases, it will go way faster. So has the industry between OEM and aftermarket come much more together and realized that we got to do this together, or is there still quite a bit of gap between the two?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, I think in many ways you're seeing the OEMs, take accessorization, personalization more seriously. You look at recent launches like the Bronco and other vehicles where there's just a ton, even the new Tacoma, just a ton of personalization around it. Now, safety, not so much, because, safety has great implications, right, for a car company when you even say that word, right? So they want to control that. They're also on a slightly different path in terms of like integrating into the vehicle and into the vehicle actions, the vehicle taking control of itself. Whereas we're mainly providing driver information systems, situational awareness systems that you see camera images, you see tones if somebody's in your blind spot, right? When you're backing up or going forward in the case of fleets, if you're going to hit something, right? So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity that's kind of unique from that. And what we're seeing too is really the fleets is where we're focused now. We used to be focused on the car dealer. That was great when there was so much more demand for cameras and sensors than the car companies were supplying. But now we're finding that the guys that really need it are the larger fleets, the commercial vans, the delivery vehicles. That business, with Amazon and everything is exploding. And you have more and more newer drivers and more time that those vehicles are on the road, right? They just live on the road. In fact, the collision rate for fleet vehicles is 3 times what it is for a passenger car. It's 20% of fleet vehicles get in a collision versus 6% for light-duty vehicles. So, and there's no regulation. There's no law like there is for the backup camera that came in 2018 in light-duty vehicles, passenger vehicles. There is no law, 10,000 pound vehicle and above. So, and there's an incredible desire, I'd say, for the technology because it's very different than when it was a dealer equation and the consumer wanted it. Now it's around ROI. It's around keeping vehicles on the road. It's around driver safety. It's around pedestrian safety. It's crash repair costs, insurance costs. And so there's even new factors such as driver retention and driver recruiting. You want to be known as the company that's using technology to keep the drivers safe if you're in an environment where there aren't enough drivers. And so you're trying to make your company more attractive. We work with a shipping company that is their message. You come drive for us, you're going to be more safe and comfortable than if you drive for one of the other guys. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and the OEMs aren't really addressing it. I mean, it's slowly coming, but there's forces at work in that industry that just makes it a little bit slower. So that's why we're very excited about some of the partnerships that we have with major upfitters, major fleet companies, and there's dozens of issues that we help solve. I can give you a couple examples if you like.
Yeah. Before we go to that, or maybe weave those into the next feedback, your answer, but the question is that you brought up, there's no regulation for backup cameras. And maybe want to go back quickly. Recently, we finally now have a law in Michigan that you're not supposed to be on your cell phone or even talking, but certainly not email, texting. That, frankly, in my about hour drive home from work, usually 80% of the people that I wonder, what are you doing on the road, are exactly doing this. And we have a law now. Do you see regulatory changes also coming again to your current main market, which is the fleets? Or is this really where you then come in and say, hey, we all know it's the right thing to do. There is no law, so they're made for the OEMs are not necessarily enticed to put additional cost into their vehicles. And that's what you're coming into then? Or as we reimagine mobility here, is this more or less a matter of the next 2-3 years and there will be more regulation also in the delivery vans, let's say, because as you said, right? I mean, it used to be, I see a delivery van once in front of my house. I see them now 3-4 times a day, right? So
yeah,
they're
right.
more and more. So where do you see that?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I've noted, I haven't seen much regulatory movement in that direction. I haven't heard or seen, and we do a lot of work in V2X, and so we're pretty close to the federal and the government level and the state DOTs. But let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of why. Here's one client of ours, 3,000 vehicles. They have a no cell phone policy. Yeah, and yet half their accidents are because of cell phone. 50% are rear-end. They're rear-ending. They're distracted. They have one accident a day, and they total one car a month. 75% of the time it's their fault, and they're self-insured. So do you think this is an issue on their radar? Probably, right? Yeah, it very, very much so. $87,000 average cost for a collision. And we can give them ROIs that are significant, in the order of 75 to 100,000, over 3 years, if they add the technology to the vehicles that is going to help mitigate a lot of that, right? There's a lot of different technologies that can help solve that. So that's how we think about it. It's probably not going to come as much from the federal regulations. It's going to come from the business mandates, the corporate mandates from companies saying, we can't keep going like this. We have to make our vehicles safer for the driver, for others, for the cargo and the corporation, because you just can't afford to have these kind of costs when they're that significant.
Oh. So with that statistic, and again, one example, you said you probably have plenty other ones, but we're talking a fleet of 3,000 here. Decent, but again, if you take the complete fleets of all in the U.S., we're in the hundreds of thousands, I'm sure. So why then, Jeff, isn't the OEM saying this is a huge market, not because of regulation, but because of customer demand, and I can differentiate yourself? Or are they just ignoring this? Are they not seeing it? Or are they just saying, hey, I can't compete with Jeff and his company, so I might as well not even try? Am I missing something, or what is the deal here?
I mean, there's probably a couple ways to look at that. One that fascinates me. I was at a fleet safety conference with a major OEM that provides vehicles to the fleet industry, and they were telling the audience that, hey, you know what, guys, we need to cut down our plant complexity. We need to offer fewer variations. And you think about all the technology that can make its way into vehicles. Now, also at the same time, I got to tip my hat to Ford and Ford Pro, where they're actually doing some interesting things with fleet. They're thinking about the fleet market more holistically. They're offering solutions for productivity, safety, telematics. So maybe it'll continue to move in that direction. But again, you have a lot of vehicles that we serve a lot of the vehicles that are based on chassis, and they're custom built. And for some of those customers, I mean, they're actually realizing what an incredible opportunity is for them to offer their customers safety solutions with basically boxes that they've been bolting to frames for 100 years, and that hasn't changed much, right? But now they're starting to see, we have to do more. We can offer more. We can do more. Because they're the special vehicle manufacturers, the upfitters, that are really in charge of the content. So I think, and couple that with all the vehicles on the road, that fleet vehicles last 12 to 15 years, you're going to have an aftermarket equation to make a dent in that collision rate. That
when we talk now, we've talked mainly about safety, right? And I think that's certainly a very important point. And as you mentioned, many companies have really, that's part of their DNA. They want to maybe not only be sustainable, but also want to be a safe environment, both for their workers, but also for the customers, obviously.
Yeah.
What do you see the next greenfield that companies like you in this space are going to go into? I mean, as we more electrify everything, is it charging infrastructure? Is it a certain safety thing? Is it how maybe drivers need to be retrained on how much more powerful maybe an EV can be driving than a gasoline or diesel? Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's companies and industries that are going to focus on like the EV, the different driving dynamics and things like that. we're seeing tremendous amount of opportunities that go beyond safety to productivity using cameras. And we just actually designed a camera system at a request of a towing products company that they wanted a movable, battery-powered, high-definition camera that their customers could put anywhere on the back of the towing vehicle or the trailer and have it come to their company application, smartphone app. And we just launched it actually this week at SEMA. They won an award. Very proud of that for best new product. Just by thinking about the environment and the needs of a in this case, towing customer that tows. And we're seeing tremendous amount of need around specific use cases for vehicles like towing. We have one very large fleet utility company that when their vehicles are backing up with a trailer, they have a hard time doing that. Not all the drivers know how to do it the same as everyone. They would require a second person, a spotter, to get out and help back the truck up. You can imagine finding a second guy if you're not necessarily. We solved that for them with cameras, so that and again, we did it with wireless technology that's now really advancing quickly, where the camera could work with multiple vehicles, so they could have different trailers, different vehicles, and everything's interoperable. So that for us is, I think, in terms of like productivity aids, lining up hitches for towing, looking inside the cargo box, monitoring cargo over a 24-hour cycle. We just see tremendous amount of opportunity just using cameras and sensors.
Interesting. Let's maybe the last couple of questions, one more both on the future related. So you've talked a little bit clearly how the industry has come, what we've done, what you have done, sort of. Now it moves as not just safety, but into productivity, which is a key piece for any organization. What are you mostly excited about over the next 5 years that in your industry is coming out, or that you guys may look at to capitalize on, either from a market demand or from a thing that you feel like, hey, we have something the market doesn't even realize, but once they see it, they will need it, and you don't need to share those top secrets. But what are you mostly excited about over the next 5 years, as we reimagine mobility here, specifically with your industry in mind?
Yeah. There's several things. I could answer that just based on the incredible amount of technology that's making itself available that's just more than the car companies can digest, right? So it's just spilling over, and there's a lot of opportunities to integrate. There's startups that ask for our help to integrate, to vehicles. And I think if you believe that the technology will continue to offer new solutions for vehicles and vehicle owners, the future is extremely bright. I'm also hopeful about V2X. We've been on kind of a rocky national journey with that. We've been involved in that heavily for the last 10 years. We've installed more V2X onboard units than any company in North America. In the deployment, the US DOT deployments, and in that setting. There's some recent news that, maybe they're ready to try to move that national mandate forward again. I keep an eye on that. But I just think, the fun of this business and the fun of this industry is looking at all the things that people need out of their vehicles, they use vehicles for, looking at emerging OEM technology and thinking of ways to bring that to the vehicles that are already on the road. That's, to me, it's going to go well past me and my time here, and it just tremendous opportunity to help society, I think, too, and help a lot of people.
That's good. All right, Jeff, last question, not related to your industry, but what's the next vehicle you're going to buy and why?
I am, that's a great question. I am a car guy. So I did just buy a Cadillac Blackwing, which is, for me and my friends at Cadillac, General Motors, who are, IC engine guys, I look at that and kind of see him doing the mic drop on that car, because it's a I've never driven a more engaging, completely excellent vehicle. But next, I had a milestone this week. My 15-year-old, she drove herself to school for the first time in my GTI, and she wants it now, so I got to get another vehicle, my daily driver. Probably looking at an electric vehicle. I'm pretty fascinated with the technology, and I'm looking at a lot of options, but probably something that you talked about earlier that might have some speed associated to it.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jeff, for your feedback. Very interesting, giving us a glimpse into how we reimagine mobility, also in the aftermarket, and how you specifically deal with fleets and their needs. Excellent. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for listening to Reimagine Mobility Podcast. If you like this episode, please subscribe and tell a friend.